There is a quiet question that many of us carry but rarely slow down enough to ask: what if the way we eat, think, and relate to life is shaping not just our health but the level of peace we experience every single day? So, when we look beneath habits and the traditions, something deeper starts to reveal itself. So, hey, dear listeners, welcome back to another powerful episode of Mind Meets Machine, where we explore the intersection of consciousness, choice, and the systems shaping our inner and the outer worlds. And today I'm joined by, please welcome the lovely guest, Dr. Will Tuttle. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Avi. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Amazing. And dear listeners, before we delve deep into our discussion, I'll quickly love to introduce you with Dr. Tuttle. Dr. Will is the author of the international bestseller, The World Peace Diet. And in this conversation today, dear listeners, we will explore how meditation, nutrition, and the compassion intersect, and how conscious living can become a practical path to inner clarity, physical health, and the more peaceful world. So I'll not take much of your time. Let's get started. Welcome to the show again.
All right. Thank you. Sounds great.
Amazing. So, Dr. Will, before we get into the ideas and the frameworks, I'm very curious. Like, when you look back on your own journey, what first nudged you to question the way most of us are taught to live it and think?
Yeah. Well, I think I was affected by the great sages of India, actually, indirectly, maybe, because I was born and raised in a town in the United States called Concord in Massachusetts, outside of Boston, back
Okay.
in the 1950s. And I learned later that the men that lived in the 1800s in
Hmm.
Concord, they're famous philosophers, Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Bronson Alcott. They had the largest library, 1840, 1850 books on Eastern religion, like the Bhagavad Gita, many of the Upanishads, the Vedas, also books from the Buddhist tradition and the Taoist tradition. And they were bringing the wisdom of India and Asia into the United States, creating something called transcendentalism. So, as a little boy growing up, I learned to swim in Walden Pond. I went to Thoreau School. I was born in Emerson Hospital. I went to the Alcott School. But I never read any of these books until I went
Hmm.
to college, about 18 or 19, 20 years old. And then I started reading them, and I loved it. I thought, wow, this is such important teaching. And I was raised to take over my father's newspaper business. I was the oldest child. I was going to be a writer and he had a whole chain of 13 newspapers, big business. But as I started reading these teachings that were basically saying that it's possible to attain a higher level of consciousness, that most people go through life asleep, really just being focused on themselves, what I can do, how I can be happy, how I can get ahead of other people,
Yeah.
competing. This whole thing is called self-consciousness. But according to these teachings, certain people, rare people, had attained cosmic consciousness, this higher level of consciousness. And they were saying that that is the real purpose of life, to
Hmm.
attain cosmic consciousness. So I was in a dilemma because I
Okay.
was trained to take over this whole big business. I have to do that. But I started thinking that's a big distraction. I'll wake up when I'm 60 years old, 70 years old, and still not know anything spiritual, really. So I started talking to my parents about it and told them, and they were, they were somewhat upset. They were also supportive. They also understood that there is more to life. Actually, my father was a musician. My mother was an artist. They were writers. I mean, so there was a spiritual component. But my younger brother, Ed, when I talked to him about it, he said, yes, let's do it. Let's attain cosmic consciousness. He was really enthusiastic. So So as soon as I graduated from Colby College in Maine, I just turned 22 years old. We decided we were going to attain cosmic consciousness. And so I remember we talked to my parents about it and they said, "So what are you going to do?" And we said, "There's only one way. We have to go to California."
Uh,
Thought if we could go to California, it was in 1975. Hippies were going. There was all these, we thought meditation centers and things. So we didn't want to just drive there or fly there in an airplane. We thought we would walk there across the entire country, 3,000 miles. And we would do it with no money. So, like the sadhus of India, we would just walk and
uh,
meditate. Somehow we would attain cosmic consciousness along the way or when we got there or something. And so we did. We left home. I remember we walked down the driveway, said goodbye to our parents. We had some fresh baked cookies from my mother, and we had two little backpacks. We headed west, and we walked for several weeks. We got as far as the city of Buffalo, New York. And by
okay.
then it was October. It was getting very cold. So we decided to just head south. So we walked uh, every day about 20 miles a day down through New York into Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, now down just south, south, south. And finally, after several months of walking, we survived somehow. The ancient wisdom teachings tell us that if we focus on the most important thing, the inner wisdom of cosmic consciousness. Jesus called it the kingdom of heaven. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. Everything else shall be added unto you. Everything else will be taken care of. And it's
Okay.
true. We didn't starve. Somehow we got some food and we met it. We just walked like slowly down. We stayed on the floor of churches usually or somewhere in the forest. Somehow we got food and eventually ended up in a community in Tennessee called the Farm. And the Farm in 1975 was the largest hippie commune in the world. 900 people, all with long hair, hippies, and they were mostly from California. They had come out
Okay.
there to start a community. They were all vegetarians. In fact, today we would call them vegans because they ate no meat, no dairy, no eggs, no honey. Even they wore no leather, many of them, because they had studied the Buddhist teachings and the Hindu teachings of
Okay.
compassion. And so we were not vegetarians. We had no money. We would eat whatever people would give us. But I felt it. I remember along the way, at one point, we had no food, but this man had let us stay in a little cabin by a stream,
Uh,
and I went out and he had some fishing poles, and I went
okay.
out there and I caught 2 fish, and I brought them in, and I thought they would be dead, but they weren't. They were still alive. They were flopping around in my pocket. I had this raincoat. I had them in the pocket, and
Uh,
so I had to kill these fish, and I had to slam them down on the floor, and they finally killed them. And then we ate them. But I remember thinking, this is terrible. I mean, here I am every day walking, meditating for peace, for wisdom. We read about this teaching from India, a great sage from Tiruvannamalai in South India, Ramana Maharshi. He
uh,
said, we should all ask, who am I? Go deeper with the question of what am I? Who am I? So every day we were walking along and it's saying, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Over and over again. And so that planted a seed, I think. And then a few months later, we found this community and they were all vegetarians. I thought, yes, because they were doing great. They had 900 people all eating a plant-based diet. They had 200 of those people were children that were born there. They were thriving little kids running around, no meat, no dairy, no eggs, just eating vegetables, grains, rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, whatever, fruits. And so that was it. From that point in my life, I never ate any meat. I became a vegetarian. And then we walked farther south. We ended up in a Zen Buddhist center in Alabama, down in the
uh,
southern part of the United States for a couple of years. And then I eventually got out to San Francisco, California. I lived in a Tibetan Buddhist meditation center, and then lived in a Zen Buddhist meditation center, and I became a vegan in 1980. So I've been a vegan, so that means no meat, dairy, or eggs, or wool, or silk, or leather, 46 years now. And then right after that, in the early 1980s, I shaved my head and I became a Zen Buddhist monk in South Korea. And
Okay.
that was interesting because in that community in South Korea, I was living in a monastery where they had been practicing, again, what we would call vegan living for 750 years. So in that community, there was no meat, no dairy, no eggs, no silk, wool, leather, no killing insects. It was based on ahimsa. Ahimsa is the old Sanskrit word that means non harmfulness. Like Mahatma Gandhi emphasized, to just try to live a life where we're being the change that we would like to see in the world. If we want to see a world of peace and harmony and love and freedom and joy and abundance, then we shouldn't be killing and stealing and dominating and exploiting other living beings.
Exactly.
We know animals are like us. I mean, they can feel pain, they can suffer. A lot of people have a companion animal like a dog or a cat or something. They wouldn't want someone to come by and say, "Wow, your dog looks good. Will you give me $5 and I'll make dog soup?" We say, "No, no, no. We love our dog. Don't harm this little." So it's just
Yeah.
applying that universally to all the animals. So that was really good because when I came back, eventually, I
Mm,
decided to come back to the United States. I got my PhD at Berkeley. I taught college courses for quite a few years in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I realized really that what we talk about when we talk about vegan living or
mm,
compassion for animals, that it's really our true nature. No one,
yeah.
when we see a little animal, we don't start salivating and want to tear it apart and kill it and have hot blood in our mouth. And no,
Mm,
we're not like that. That's not how we are. But we're raised to eat animal foods, and we're not like little cows. When we go, we don't. When we see a cow, we don't want to get underneath and drink her milk. It's not a natural thing. It's just we're taught to do it by our society. And so I realized that if we eat the food we're really designed for, we'll be more healthy. And I've been so wonderfully healthy. That's the great thing. I'm now in my early 70s, and I did a test about 4 or 5 months ago for your biological age. And I have the age, according to this test, I'm only 22 years old. So I never did it for my health. I really did it because I didn't want to cause suffering to animals and to other people. I didn't want to pay people to stab animals. That's a terrible thing. I pay someone to stab animals all day. That's all they do. These workers have the
yeah.
highest rates of injury. They have very high rates of suicide and drug addiction, spousal abuse, child abuse. They do violence. I don't want to pay someone else to do those terrible things. And plus, if we fed all the food that we're growing now to animals, we could
Mm,
feed everyone. We would have no hunger, no starvation. Or even if we don't care about animals, if we only care about human beings, it makes sense to not eat animals. So all of those things make me very happy that I was very fortunate to leave home, to go on the road with my brother, to try to attain cosmic consciousness, to discover that it is possible to live without causing suffering to animals for food. And the joy in my heart every day, the gratitude that I feel for others and for my life, I think it's a wonderful gift that we all have potentially. It's just a
yeah.
matter of questioning the official stories in our society that rationalize and validate the abuse of animals for food. So I,
Mm,
I just want to thank you for creating an online platform where we can talk about these things and where we can question the official narratives, and we don't have to blame and shame and criticize
right.
and fight and complain. We can just be grateful and learn and grow and share the good news that all of us have this physical body that really doesn't need anything
Mm,
from an animal to be healthy. Like all of the nutrients in meat or dairy products or eggs are made by plants. The proteins are all made by plants, the amino acids, the fats, everything, vitamins, minerals. Plants give us everything. They give us fiber. There's no fiber in animal food, so we need to eat plants for that. They give us
mm,
the carbohydrates that are energy that burn really clean. They're really healthy, and everything's in plants. We don't have to, pass it through an animal. And then we eat all the suffering and all the misery, all the toxins that come from that. We get sick. People are so sick now. I mean, it's ridiculous. People have diabetes, cancer, heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, obesity, osteoporosis. I mean, all of this comes from eating animal food. So we eat that,
Mm.
cause them suffering, and we get the suffering. So yeah, it's really good to understand these things, essentially.
Definitely, I totally agree with you, and thank you so much for sharing that. And we should also definitely understand about it. Like, so I'm not against any vegan or non-veg or non-vegan. So, but what I feel is like people should understand the difference. It's how it is affecting our body, and how it is also benefiting us from the vegan products as well. Definitely. And so let's stay there for a moment. Like, I'd love to ask you, like, from your perspective, like, what will be the deeper cultural or psychological patterns that actually keep people disconnected from the impact of their daily choices?
That's a really good question. And that's why I wrote the book, The World Peace Diet, that you mentioned earlier. And I think why it was so enthusiastically received. It's been translated now into, I think, 19 languages, including Hindi and a few other languages in India. I forget all the ones, the Tamil, I think. But anyway, um, the is our most intimate connection with nature, with our society. We actually, what is outside of us, like whatever we eat, it comes into our mouth and it becomes my hands and feet and eyes and teeth and the whole body. So what is not me becomes me, or what is not my body becomes my body. And so that is a very powerful symbolic action. So every society, it's ritualized. And so when we eat food, we're not just eating food, we're eating a whole set of narratives that come from our parents and teachers and friends and neighbors and relatives and the whole society. And it's about our relationship between men and women, between humans and animals, between humans and nature, between humans and God, the divine. And the problem is, if we're eating animal foods, the narratives, the stories we're eating at the same time go
Mm.
very deep into us. And they're not in our best interest, but they're hard to question. So in my book, The World Peace Diet, I have another book, a newer book called Food for Freedom. I really go into that in depth, but I'll just say a few of them briefly because it's a long discussion. But briefly, like one of them, very important one, every time we're eating animal foods, we're eating a mentality of disconnectedness. We're basically saying, I do not make the connection between what's on my plate and what it took to get onto my plate. If we're eating meat or cheese or something, we really don't want to think about the animal that was killed or abused or enslaved or exploited so that I can eat this. So we learn with every meal, and this is usually 3 times a day, 2 or 3 times every day we're eating, and it starts from the time we're born. And we're our whole life, every day, relentlessly, we're eating this mentality of disconnectedness. Don't make the connection. I'm just eating a burger. I'm just eating an egg. I'm just eating some cheese or yogurt or milk. But we don't look into the suffering that's being caused. We'd rather not see that. And so we learn to disconnect cognitively, emotionally, and spiritually. And my PhD at Berkeley, it was in education. And so one of the things I focused on is intelligence. What is intelligence? Actually, the definition of intelligence is the capacity to make connections, relevant connections. So if we're raised in a society where everyone in the society is being wounded, I mean, we basically have to learn to not make connections, to basically erode and reduce our intelligence, our capacity to make connections, then we end up creating a society, even though we're very smart. I mean, humans are intelligent, but what are we doing? You know, we're fighting with each other, we're dominating nature, we're exploiting, we're making ourselves sick. From the outside, if someone came from outer space and landed here and looked at what we're doing, it would be obvious to them that the main thing we're doing on planet Earth is we're growing huge amounts of food, feeding it to animals, killing the animals. That's making us sick. We're fighting over land. We're fighting over everything. It's so obvious. The
Very
biggest
true.
thing we're doing is our food and it's animals, and it's devastating to them and to us. It's obvious, but to us, we don't see it. We're kind of blind. We have these blinders put on where we just don't see. So we stay shallow and disconnected. So what veganism is essentially, it's just taking off the blinders and saying, I'd like to see what I'm doing here. What are we eating? And so when I see the burger, I look beyond that and see the cow beyond that. I see the cow or the chicken or the pig or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's learning to look deeply, see deeply, care deeply, and that brings back our intelligence. And when we do that, then we're more free. We're not so
Mm,
easily manipulated. We're not so easily enslaved. Most people don't realize that in many ways we've become slaves. We're working at a job, struggling to make money that goes to somebody else so we can survive, just to pass on our genes so that our children can do the same thing. It's like we should be living in a much more intelligent, free way. So that's one. Another one, the subtext of every meal is privilege and elitism in the sense that the underlying teaching is there are certain beings that are inherently superior. That's us. There's other beings that are inherently inferior. That's them. And it's fine for the superior beings to dominate and exploit the inferior beings. Now, we say we want a society with more justice, more fairness, more equality, and freedom for everyone. But the meals we're eating are the opposite of that. We're eating injustice, the domination of the weak by the strong. And so we create a society where there's super rich people, very poor people, and we don't make any progress changing it because every day we're killing millions of animals like they don't matter. And pretty soon we have people looking at us like we don't matter. It's karma.
true.
As you sow, so shall you reap. Whatever we put out will come back. If we're going to
Yes.
insist on
Circle
eating
of
animals,
life.
we're going to get sick. And if we're going to insist on exploiting others, we're going to get exploited. So if we
Exactly.
want to be free, we need to free others. Their interests are as important to them as my interests are to me. But others that are more wealthy and powerful look at us like we're just livestock. We can be exploited and used. And we say, well, no, I don't want to be exploited, but I like to exploit animals. We're not, we have to go to a higher ethical level and actually not just talk about being kind and loving, but actually be more kind and loving to other beings. And then the third and final one I'll mention, because it's an important one too, is the domination of the sacred feminine dimension of consciousness. I refer to this in my writings as Sophia. Sophia was the Greek goddess of wisdom. Sophia means wisdom in Greek. And so I think that represents the feminine wisdom within all of us. We have this inner feminine wisdom of receptivity. Like when we meditate, the whole idea in meditation is to quiet the mind, to let the mind be at peace, to be receptive, to listen to a higher wisdom. And out of that wisdom, then we can act. So that's Sophia, the ancient wisdom that's within every human being to listen, to be open and receptive. And out of that comes this kindness, like a mother, when she gives birth to a baby, the Sophia wisdom comes right in her heart, and she wants to care for that baby. The baby is nothing but trouble, is crying and screaming, who knows what, but she just loves and cares for the baby. That's Sophia wisdom. Men have the same thing. We can also be kind. We also have that love and caring for our children and for the society and for the environment. But the problem is with animal agriculture, we it suppresses Sophia. We learn to say, no, I don't care. I don't care about cows. I don't care about the suffering of others. I got to just do what I have to do. And so when you have a society that's eating animal foods and everyone learns by eating every day in a ritualized way to suppress Sophia, then you have a society where unfortunately the children are not really protected. We have corporations coming in advertising on TV, with violence, with food that's not healthy, all these things. Sophia would rise up in us and protect the children, protect the environment, protect each other and animals. But when it's suppressed, it allows very powerful forces to dominate all of us. So I think what we're talking about is the resurrection of the Sophia wisdom. That's our inherent true nature. And I think it's exemplified by so many of the great sages
Mm,
of India through the thousands of years. They've shown through the harmony that they feel and the love that they have for animals and for other human beings, how we can live in harmony, how we can just live simply, grow food. Our happiness doesn't come from accumulating a lot of things. It comes really from a mind that's at peace, that's not distracted, that's present, and that sees that there's one life that lives through all of us. And the more we love others, the more we're loved. The more we care for others, the more we're cared for. That's the ancient wisdom from India that
Exactly.
I think the whole world is hungry for that. The whole world is thirsty for this ancient wisdom. That's the Amrita that
Very
we
true.
are very thirsty for that wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the Amrit actually. Definitely. So regarding the setbacks and other things, like I mean obviously change is rarely linear. So when people slip back into the old patterns, what do you think? What's the healthiest way to respond instead of self-judgment?
Yeah, that's a good question because we tend to beat ourselves up. Maybe we think, "Oh, I shouldn't have eaten that." Maybe we don't feel very well. I think the most important thing is to just every day do our best, and
Exactly.
that's also to realize that we're surrounded in many ways, by hostile forces. I mean, there's a lot of money that is made on people who are sick, people who are eating food that's not very healthy, and so everywhere we look, if we look around, we see advertisements, we see other people, our friends and neighbors, they're all pressuring us. Oh, just have this. You should eat this. So it takes a lot of discipline to stick with something that we know is right. So I would recommend that we also do our best to try to find other people who have similar values. Maybe go to restaurants if there are any restaurants where they serve vegetarian, vegan food. Try to have friends and neighbors. There's an old saying: we become like the people we associate with. We do. We
We
become like
surround
the
with.
people we associate with. It's hard to deny that, and that's why we have ashrams, temples, monasteries, because when people meditate together, it's very easy to meditate. When everyone's eating the same healthy food, it's easy. We all eat the same healthy food. Like when I was a Zen monk in Korea, I didn't have a choice. When I was at the farm in Tennessee, I didn't have a choice. That's all they had was vegan food. So I ate it and I learned to like it. And so if we can, like when we go to the store, like don't buy anything that you don't want to eat later. That's an important thing. And don't bring it home because if it's home, you'll probably eat it. And then
Exactly.
try to find other people who have the same values and associate with them. Build a little community, get some friends, support each other, maybe online community. If you don't have a physical community, maybe there's groups online, Facebook groups, other groups. And that'll be helpful because we're always being bombarded really by the opposite, especially from corporations, pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, the food industry, the chemical industry. They all want us eating unhealthy food and getting sick. That's how they make their money. They haven't made any money on me in 45 or 50 years, really. I haven't bought one pill for anything. So they don't want that. They want people that watch television. I never watch television either. I just don't watch it. I read books or do other things, but I don't let my take in a lot of lies, a lot of bad information, a lot of negative influences.
Very true.
Yeah, our mind is really what makes our body act, right? Our body doesn't just eat something because it wants to. It's our mind. And our mind is really driven by our thoughts. And so our emotions are driven by our thoughts. So the most important thing is to have mental self-discipline, and a meditation practice is great. Every day, first thing in the morning, I spend about 2 hours just meditating in silence, also doing some yoga, some journal writing, some reading of sacred text. Set the foundation. First thing in the morning, 2 hours of just silence. Get up early if you need to. That's so important to create a foundation for the whole rest of the day. If we don't do that, then we can easily be thrown off balance. But if we have a good solid
Exactly.
foundation in our consciousness and a positive sense of gratitude that we have another day. Every day is precious. We have another day to learn and to grow, contribute, to be part of the healing of our world. These days go by quickly and they're limited, and all of us are going to be leaving. We're only on this earth for a few short years. They go by very fast. So why waste our time poisoning ourselves and causing suffering to others? We're not going to escape. When we leave this body, we're going to have another one. And our future incarnations are dependent on how we live this incarnation. So if I
Exactly.
think I go ahead and harm others now, it's all going to come back. It may not come back in this life, but it definitely will come back another time.
No, I also believe that sometimes it also comes back to us same life.
It comes back in
I
this
believe.
one too, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very true. Very truly say that. And also, I mean, why I said like same thing comes back to us in the same life is, I mean, if you get the chance, just read Bhagavad Gita and you will see. So there are 18 chapters are there. So you will understand like why I said like it also comes back to us the same life. Yeah,
Thank you.
you will definitely love it. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. So, dear listeners, I mean, I'll definitely love to sum up this thing, what we discussed. Like, at its core, I mean, today's conversation actually reminds us that the peace is not something that we chase. It is something we practice through everyday choices made with the awareness and the compassion. Great. Dr. Will, like for those who want to go deeper with you into your work, where is the best place to find your books and things?
I think the best place, and thank you for that beautiful summary. This is something that we practice. That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Worldpeacediet.com, that website, worldpeacediet.com. That'll get you there. Or if you just remember my name, willtuttle.com, that'll get you there. We have a YouTube channel. We have our online schedule. We have trainings. We have articles, books, music, art. My wife's an artist. I'm a musician, play the piano. It's all right there. I'm happy to be in touch with people. Yeah. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. So, dear listeners, I'll put all the details and the links into the show notes for easy reference. And thank you so much for spending this time with us on Mind Meets Machine. And if this conversation sparked reflection, please let it sit with you because sometimes the most meaningful changes begin quietly, right? So, with this hope, this is your host, Avik, and this is Mind Meets Machine. Until next time, stay curious, stay conscious, and take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.